Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, August 29th. We got a nice 12-game slate. We got a lot of baseball to be played. Yesterday was a fun slate. Braves went off. Astros went off. It was a interesting slate for sure. Now, today we're going to go over yesterday's winning lineups, the perfect lineups, and then also today's projected ownership for pitchers, some pitchers to consider, followed by stacks ownership and some stacks to consider as we walk you through the whole slate. Now, before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all our videos. Helps us out a ton just to feed that YouTube algo and, get us a little more notoriety and allow us to keep giving all this content out for free. Also, I wanted to once again bring your attention to this right here. Our prices are going up. We have 5 days to get in before the prices go up. They are $29.99 right now. If you get in now, you're locked in for at least 1 year at this price. After that, the price goes up to $39.99. So get in now while you can, and let's go. Let's ride with us for the football season. Let's have a good time. Now, let's get to the slate. All right, so perfect lineup yesterday. Johan Oviedo went nuts. He had a complete game. Then Kyle Harrison, 11 strikeouts. Dude was just absolutely insane. He's got a, nice, bright, young future there. So, lineup-wise, we got a nice little Astro stack there. Acuna went nuts. Outman was a nice little value piece. We got a Cleveland. We got a Diamondback. We got a Washington National there. So, got a little stack, nice little lineups there. And then our winning lineup went to Scott 12E12. And he was multi-enter guy. He went with Kyle Harrison, went with Oviedo. So, getting a little different here at pitching with, a 19% guy and 11% guy. And then he went with the old ATL stack, which came in, not that high owned outside of Acuna. He had some of the more bottom end of the lineup guys, and they just came through. Only 5% for Harrison, 12% for Arcia, 16 Riley, 8 for Sean Murphy. So real nice lineup, good for him. 5-man Atlanta stack, and then 3 one-offs. So once again, it's the 5-man stack that got it done on DraftKings. Now let's get into FanDuel, and let's see what we got over there. All right, so Harrison, and then we have a twin stack, an Astros stack, once again Acuna, J-Rod, and then Hayward to round it out. Used all the salary, 412 points, pretty high scoring day here in St. Louis. 5-0, made it happen. He won 316, so just under $100 or 100 points less than the perfect lineup, which, is a very normal thing to see here. And the lineup, 3-man Houston stack, 3-man ATL, and a 2-man Padres got it done. So the old 3-3-2, nice work. And, way to kind of mix in a low-owned Houston stack with a high-owned Atlanta stack to get it done. His 3 Atlanta pieces, were extremely high-owned, 70% owned, and 3 guys is a lot. But then the Astros were, virtually unowned. 2% for Abreu, 4% for Altuve, 2% for Pena. Just super, super low owned. Harrison was low owned. So, way to kind of use a high owned stack, but use it in a way to get different. And they took it down. So, congrats on your 20K. Now, let's get into today's slate, shall we? So once again, we got another 12-gamer. Braves versus Colorado, still there. There's a couple different little spots for weather. Cubs do look like the most worrisome spot, but there are a couple spots for rain here, so make sure to pay attention. I think all the games are going to be played, but who knows, as a lot can change from now to game time. All right, so Cole Reagans, 6K. I don't know what DraftKings is thinking about putting him in only 6K, 38% ownership on a 12-game slate. But the dude has been unreal lately, so I don't think, we could really argue with the ownership here. Look, 1.44 FIP over his last 5 starts, 36% K rate. The guy has been legitimately a very, very good pitcher. 3.1x value, 18-point projection at 6K. I mean, this is one of those spots where you might just have to go with the chalk. Now, it is baseball. There's always pretty high volatility with everything. Less volatility with pitchers, though. And Reagan's on DraftKings is probably somewhere, and I'm just going to go with. Next, we got Alex Cobb versus the Reds. Look, he's super high owned. We have him only at 1.8x at 6,800. Out of these two super chalky pieces, Cobb is 100% the one that I would jump off of. He's been poor lately, giving up a ton of hard contact. He's against Cincinnati, which hits the ball hard. They have a decent offense. Excuse me. They also blew him up just about a month ago. 5 runs and 4 innings. He did struggle with some command issues, 4 walks that game, which is something he, normally doesn't do. So he was definitely off of his game that day. But the one thing that is in his favor big time is he's averaging 49% more fantasy points at home. Cincinnati's striking out a lot. So he does have a little upside here, but out of Reagans and Cobb is the one I'm would be fading chalk-wise. Next, George Kirby. George Kirby is just an incredible spot here, and he's just been insane all season, and more so at home, where he's averaging 36% more fantasy points. This Oakland offense just isn't good. They strike out a lot, and Kirby works deep into games, has a decent strikeout rate, and I don't mind him whatsoever today. 2.2x, 21 point projection here. He looks like he's in a great spot. 34% owned. Next, we got Justin Steele. Be a little wary about this game. There is a chance of a delay or postponement here. So make sure you watch weather, as we get a little bit closer. I expect Steele's ownership to probably come down a little bit due to the weather situation. But going over the spot for him, look, the Brewers do hit lefties hard. However, wind is coming in Chicago, which really helps limit home runs there. And this isn't a guy that allows a lot of home runs as it is. It keeps the ball ground, 41% ground ball rate, very low hard contact rate. He's been very good all season. His strikeout rate has came up recently. It's 26%. I don't mind him. I don't love him. 1.6x for LineStar here. Next, we got Pablo Lopez. So once again, wind are blowing in here. We got a pitcher-friendly park. Guardians striking out at 22%. Lopez been very, very good all season long, and I see no reason for that to stop today. His StatCast data has been good. 2.92 FIP over his last 5. Solid K rates. The combined K rate is 24. He is a little expensive for what his combined K rate is. But at lower ownership and 1.9x, I'm definitely very interested there. Jose Quintana. So Quintana is likely my cheap pivot off of Cobb. Frankly, I just think Quintana is in a better spot than Cobb is. He's only 6,300. He's been great 2.9 FIP over his last 20, 3.55 over his last 5. Not a ton of upside in the K department, but he's just been pitching very, very well. And, at low ownership, I am interested in taking some swings there. Lugo versus the Cardinals, he's fine. 2.4x. I think he's probably priced a little lower than he should be. Cardinals aren't, that great of an offense. They are good, but not great. He's allowing some hard contact, but it is a pitcher-friendly park here. So if he gets into a little trouble, he can probably get out of it. I don't mind going with some Lugo here. One thing is the Padres have given up, so that's the big negative. All right, so Andrew Heaney has been pitching much better lately. His K rate has come up. The one thing is he hasn't been working deep into games, and his pitch counts haven't been very high. 72 pitches average for his last 5 starts. So with that, I would be very, very worried. Even as, good games, he's in the 80s, high 80s. So limited upside, but he has been pitching better. So there's some interest there. Clayton Kershaw, we don't totally know what his pitch count is going to be like. So he is better at home. I believe this game versus the Guardians, if I remember correctly, was one there was a delay, and so he just didn't come back out. But he is still working back from being, injured. So I would expect him to probably be around 80, maybe 85. I don't expect a huge workload for him, but he is a very good pitcher, and the Diamondbacks, if their offense has a weakness, it is versus lefties. The one thing is they just don't strike out a ton versus him. Think he's kind of interesting. Don't love it. All right, Charlie Morton's a very, very interesting one here. He's coming off 2 games, which he was absolutely dealing, but he's worse away, 29% less fantasy points away, and this away is in Colorado. Now, Colorado lineup isn't great. They strike out at 26%. They do hit much better at home, but they aren't that great. And combined K rate of 29% at 8,500 is at least interesting. So Morton, like any Colorado pitcher, is not going to project well. However, at very low ownership, this is a guy that could have a very good game. Am I going to play him a ton? Absolutely not. It's extremely risky, but I might have a little bit for the off chance that he can, kind of reproduce what he did the last 2 outings and do it in Colorado. Is it likely? No, not likely at all. Very hard to use a pitcher in Colorado, but the elevation doesn't matter too much if they can't hit you. So that's one thing I would have to say. I am slightly interested at his ownership and price. Jose Barrios, 8,800 is probably a little bit cheap. He's versus the Nationals, who aren't very good. When he's on, he's very good. He has some real high ceilings, and at 8,800, it's very interesting. 1.9x value as a median is solid. So he very well could be in the mid-20s, pitch, say, 6-7 innings with 6-7-8 Ks and get the win. And if he does that at 8,800, he might be in the optimal lineup or a winning lineup here. Corbin Burns is the high-priced pivot, but once again, it's in the game that there is some worry weather-wise. He's a little interesting. I just don't love it. I don't think the upside is totally there. Next, I want to go over a little bit is Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams is very interesting. He's been good lately. 3.19 FIP over his last 5. 32% K rate. And he's versus a Twins team that strikes out a lot. 28% K rate. 30% combined K rate is at least interesting. Now, my one worry with him is he's another guy that, hasn't pitched deep into games. I do like him more on DraftKings than on FanDuel because it's not as likely that he would pitch 6 innings and get the quality start. Now, he could very well go 5 innings, have 6 or 7 Ks and a win. And on DraftKings, that might be enough to get it done here. All right, let's get over to FanDuel. Reagan, once again, 6,600, 37% owned. Like I said, for DraftKings, it might just be a spot that you got to pay for. He's been great lately. He's in an okay spot. Pittsburgh strikes out a lot versus lefties. They're not great versus lefties. So, makes a lot of sense to go there. If you are going to get off, George Kirby's probably one of the better spots to go. As we talked about, he's better at home. He's against Oakland. All good stuff there. Steele Cobb, Pablo Lopez is pretty expensive here, but that lower ownership is interesting. Quintana is fairly interesting at only 2% owned and 7,700. One thing with Quintana is he just does not have the strikeout upside that Reagan's does. And at 7,700, you're going to be building with similar salary as Reagan. So, your lineup construction is going to end up fairly similar to a lot of people. So I don't think Quintana is, the great pivot off Reagan's unless he just simply outscores Reagan, which I would say is probably unlikely. Charlie Morton will be some nice leverage there. He can definitely crush the slate. Berrios probably a little high or a little pricey, but I don't mind it whatsoever. He's in a good matchup and can absolutely dial it in when he's good. All right, stack time. Stack attack. So we got 12 games on the docket. Colorado and the Braves, Colorado and Atlanta, 12-point run total, very high. Next highest is this Houston-Boston game. Yesterday it was very similar. Houston got totally forgotten about, and they crushed the slate. Could absolutely happen again. And then Baltimore and White Sox are the next highest. All right. Come on here. All right. We'll just start with ceiling again because it is here. So highest ceiling, we're getting the Mariners versus Waldichuk. Makes a lot of sense. Waldichuk isn't that good. The Mariners are hot. I like this spot, and it's going to be pretty low owned. Braves, pretty much obvious for a big ceiling today. Once again, we got to bring it up, though. They're just a pricey stack. So that is the bummer there. But Lambert's not good. The bullpen's not good. If Lambert gets out early, which is likely, I think I bet the under 14.5 outs on Lambert today. So it's likely that you're getting to the bullpen early, and that can really cause some trouble. Next, we got Astros and Bello. Makes a lot of sense. Bello's just been okay lately. Does let a little bit of the long ball go, and you got the good Boston hitting ballpark. All right, so highest projected own today is going to be the Braves. ATL, so 12 game slate. They are higher owned than they were yesterday, which is no surprise whatsoever after they went off for 14 runs. Now, do they put up 14 again? Maybe. The only issue is that at their pricing, they kind of have to go off for 14 to make it reasonable. I mean, look, you got 7K, 6,300, 6,900, 5,900. Your 9 hitter is 5,300. That is just insane. It's going to be hard for me to get there. You do have Reagan's on the slate, which makes it easy. Just like yesterday, there are some cheap pitchers that look good and project well. So people will be getting to this stack. Now, because of its price, it's not going to be like, crazy high owned, but it's going to be a higher owned spot, and looks like it's a good one. So, all right. Now let's get to the projected here. Did I click it? Did I not? Going a little slow today. There we go. So the highest projected, no surprise, the Braves. They got a pretty good buffer here being the highest projected too. So this very well could be a slate where you just got to stack the Braves and then get different elsewhere. Houston's coming in next at, moderate ownership. Makes a lot of sense to go to Houston. Houston, the Braves look like everybody's going to be there. Now, the one thing I do have to say about that is they're both expensive stacks. Houston not as expensive, but it's going to be extremely hard to stack both of those. It's kind of one or the other. Houston is the lower side of them. Value-wise, we got Cleveland versus Pablo Lopez. Lopez is a really good pitcher. Cleveland has been hitting decently, so I get it, but I think it's just really that they're so cheap, and the guys they do have either power or speed and have some ability to score fantasy points, but I don't love it. Minnesota, it's against Gavin Williams. Once again, I don't love it, but I don't mind it either. However, I do think 42% owned for them is a little high. But Royce Lewis is a stud. Julian is a stud. Makes a lot of sense to go that. Royals, don't really know who they're facing yet, but they're always kind of a cheap, exciting team to stack there. Brewers versus Steele. Now, as I mentioned, there is some possible weather here. If Steele, for whatever reason, gets, say, an early delay and doesn't come back into the game, makes that Brewer stack look a lot more interesting. It is feasible, but we really have to wait to know a little later into the game or into the day. Oakland versus Kirby, definite a leverage stack there. Now, let's see what we're missing here, because I know we are missing a few. One, we're definitely missing Colorado versus Charlie Morton. Morton gives up hard contact, has a high average exit velocity. In a place like Colorado, that just leads to home runs. His hard contact rate is actually higher than Peter Lambert, so it's interesting. JP France versus Boston is another spot. I think you go to Boston. It's a very good hitting park. Baltimore makes some sense. Schultens has been decent lately, but that bullpen is terrible. And with that, if you get into that bullpen early, you can really put up some damage. KC versus Pittsburgh. Little interesting. They're cheap. Makes some sense there. San Diego. You never know what to do with the San Diego offense. They are hit or miss, and they've kind of given up on the season, so who knows. Seattle, like them a lot. Dodgers are always a little interesting. The leverage stack for the day, without a doubt, is Pittsburgh going against Cole Reagans. Reagans will be insanely high owned, but just with that leverage, because of that, having a little bit of Pittsburgh does make a little sense there. So a lot of different ways you can go on the slate. It's a pretty interesting slate. Atlanta is obviously my favorite stack, but I do like Baltimore and Colorado as well. And I really like the Seattle stack that's going pretty low owned and has a real nice ceiling there, and they've been crushing it lately, so might as well ride the hot hand there. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll be back. I don't know if I will be back tomorrow, actually. I looked, and it looked like it's an early slate. But as long as there's 4 games, I'll be back tomorrow. You guys have a good one. Good luck. Let's win some money. Bye.